You're listening to GotTechED the Podcast with your hosts, Eric Guise and Nick Johnson. Welcome back, everyone, to GotTechED the Podcast. This is episode 15 called Teacher Tips, Homework, and 21st Century Pen Pals. In this episode, we'll give more advice to all the first-year teachers out there, this time focusing outside the classroom walls. We'll answer the teacher tech question of the day about homework and discuss 21st Century Pen Pals. Finally, we wrap up the episode with another tech battle royale. Check it out. So Guise and I are sitting here on our first official day back in the school walls. I know we've been in over the summer recording the podcast, working on PD, doing all kinds of stuff, but this is our first real day where that alarm clock goes off at 5:30. It's painful, but it's exciting. I know we're both looking forward to being back, and it kind of always gets us, it's a reflective time, right? Because everybody's super stressed and you're thinking about what you did last year and the year before that, and it just sort of makes you, like I said, reflect on some things. So with that in mind, I thought we would offer up some tips to specifically first-year teachers, but this really could apply to anybody. Just some stuff that we wish we were told our first year teaching, but specifically this time, because I think we've done this before, specifically not related to anything at all within the classroom. We don't want to talk lesson development. We don't want to talk actual teaching or interacting with kids. We're going outside those classroom walls. So what do you think about this, guys?
Develop relationships. It's probably the most important thing in my mind. And there are two groups that stick out to me. And the first one is secretaries, the second one custodians. I think they are people that you need to get on your side, get to know, because the secretaries for me are the people that are the glue of the building, and they know where everything's at. They know where every form is located. They know who to talk to about certain issues, and it saves you a lot of time. And we teachers know that time is valuable. It's very valuable for us. And I'll give you a quick example of this. Have you ever gone into the secretary's office, main office, let's say, and you walk in and they kind of look at you and they read your face a little bit? And for me, it's the look of, I'm kind of embarrassed to ask because I should know where this is at.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, recently, it was a professional development form, and I want to go to a professional development. You fill it out, you send it off, it goes and gets approved by 6 different people, and then you get to go, or you don't get to go. But I walk into the main office, the secretary looks at me and she's like, "Guys, what do you need?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry to bother you. I need a professional development form." And she does this thing where she kind of looks at me and, "Come on, Guise," right. One of those. And then she points over and, I grab it. And what would take me a long time to figure out takes a very short amount of time. And, I really appreciate the fact that the secretaries go out of the way, but I make sure that I treat them well, and you get them a gift on Secretary Day.
Yes, and Christmas, and at the end of the year. Maybe not go overkill and do all 3 of those, but definitely gifts help.
Yes, they do.
So, like you said, the secretaries really just, they know how the school runs more than anybody else. Here's another group of staff that's really important. How about the custodians? I know just this past year, I had a problem. I could not get my room, and as a chemistry teacher, having paper towels around is like the most important thing for lab work. They're sort of just the all-purpose cleanup. Could not get my room filled with paper towels. Who do you go talk to? The custodians. As long as you've got a good relationship, just like you said with their secretaries, they can help you out. They can make sure you're stocked with what you need. There's nothing more annoying in the wintertime when everybody's got the sniffles and you can't find tissues. You didn't get a chance to run out and grab a box for yourself. Good relationships with the custodians is extremely important as well, kind of similar to how the secretaries
Just
work.
to feed off of that, Nick Johnson, when he does his labs, paper towels are used. Everything is spick and span. He cleans it to a T. It's shiny, it's glistening, and there's nothing on top, of his counters. Everything's put away. So he goes through them all the time.
Spotless. I need it spotless. I can't function unless it's perfect. I need my paper towels.
And tissues, we get a certain number of boxes allotted per school, and when they're gone, they're gone. But there's always a stash of them somewhere.
Yep. Or how about when you put that do not erase sign on your board? You actually want them to listen to you and not erase it. Good relationships with the custodians, super important.
All right, let's go into the next little thing. And that's, as a first-year teacher, you're going to get frustrated. In my opinion, it's your hardest year of your career.
Yep.
You have all these preps to go through. It's first time you're going through the content, all that good stuff. But you just need to know who you should complain to and vent to and who you shouldn't. And for me, if you have another colleague that you're super tight with, yeah, that's okay. But if you need to go above that, you need to make sure that you're complaining and venting to your mentor. All right. It's their job to hear you struggle and to help you work through those. I would stay away from doing the supervisor, and I'm not saying supervisors aren't there to listen, but just note that most supervisors have a lot on their plate. They're supervising multiple departments. There are linkage between teachers and the upper administration, and that's not where you want to go for those channels.
Right. Well, plus they're kind of like your boss, so you want to always put the best foot forward there, and maybe complaining to them, especially if you really just need to blow off some steam, is probably not the best idea, but it depends on your relationship with that person. Mostly you just want to, the people you are talking to, make sure they're the right person to speak to for the right thing and develop those habits early on. And kind of in that same line, this was one thing that was really super critical for me, and I think I did do this right from the bat, probably not in all the areas I would have chosen to now looking back, but what I'm talking about is getting involved outside the classroom. It's so important. I know for us at the high school level, when the students see you doing things for and in the school that aren't specifically within your four walls of chemistry or social studies or whatever, it goes a long way. It gives them a way to connect with you. It gives them something to just kind of chit-chat about as they walk in the room or as they leave the room. I know we used to work the football games, kind of doing like security patrol to football games.
I still do it.
Yeah,
I still do it, and it's just a way to show students that, you're not just there to teach them, you also care about them, and you want to see them succeed in other, avenues other than just straight up academic. And
right.
I think that's very important.
As much of that as you can do. I used to do track officiating too, which was crazy. I've never done it before. I just showed up and they handed me a stopwatch and said, here you go, this race is starting in 30 seconds. And I was doing the stopwatch, like the timing for the race, and I was nervous, I was uncomfortable, I was afraid I was going to mess up, but I can't tell you how much it helped the next day. When all the kids saw me there doing it, they were like, oh, Mr. Johnson, I didn't even know you did, blah, blah, blah. That's so cool. It just opens up this whole other line of communication. So, and it doesn't have to all be sports, obviously, but as many of those things as you can do, it all really helps.
And probably the number one thing that new teachers, the piece of advice that we could give you is to make sure that you're taking time for yourself to do things that are not school related, because our profession is challenging in multiple ways. You're not just a teacher, you're a counselor sometimes. Sometimes you're just a friend helping to give advice. We see our students through the hard, through the easy, through the successes, through the failures, and sometimes that could be taxing. So make sure that you're taking some time to go for that hike, read that book, or put your feet up on the couch and watch football.
Just do anything that takes you away from the classroom. A big push right now for us is all the mindfulness stuff. Just take a minute to yourself to don't think about anything except being there and enjoying life for what it is, separate from education. You can follow GotTechED outside the podcast at GotTech.com or on Twitter at WeGotTechED.
So, Nick, I was talking to one of my neighbors, and this neighbor of mine is one of the neighbors that I consider a super fun neighbor. He's always doing stuff with his kids outside. He's originally from Brooklyn, Brooklyn for 35 years.
Like a heavy New Yorker accent, kind of.
Yeah, I'll do my impression and then I'll move on. But he's like, and his name's Tony.
Oh,
and he goes,
perfect.
Yo, Guise, what do you think of the homework? And I'm like, Tony, what do you mean? What do you think of the homework? And he's like, this is where I go into regular voice. I'm not going into Brooklyn the whole time because I don't think it's doing the Brooklyn accent the correct way.
We all appreciate that.
But yeah, so we're having a conversation. Apparently his school district, and I don't teach in his children's school district. I live in a different school district in which I teach. And he was just wondering my thoughts on homework. And I thought it was actually a very cool piece. And I told him I was going to use it for the podcast, and he was like, he felt like he was a very contributing member to the podcast, and he's super excited, and he wants me to drop him the link afterwards, and I'm super excited, and then after that we kind of went away from it. But I'm bringing this in for Tony. So Tony, if you're listening, this segment is for you, and I just really want to go over the pros and cons and try to think out loud a little bit about homework. Are we doing ourselves, is homework providing a benefit for students, or are we taking away from a student's life outside of school?
Right. So should we maybe sort of do a pros cons and just start going through? I mean, I know one thing that teachers always argue, and I'm not even sure how I feel about this myself currently, but I've heard a lot of teachers say that homework helps teach students responsibility, just as a potential pro, because they're responsible for going home, finishing what you assign, bringing it back by a certain due date. So that's thrown out there a lot.
So let me just play devil's advocate here. Like, how much homework are you talking about for responsibility? Could it just be like something very quick?
Right.
Or does it have to be 45 minutes to an hour long? Is there a set piece of, or a set time of homework that makes it worth that?
Right. Or is it the due date itself? And even that is questioned. Like, is it worth, is it so important to have the homework done on a certain day? Or does it matter if it's done correctly 3 days later? Maybe, maybe not.
All right, so the pro is it teaches responsibility. The con is there's not enough clarity there,
right,
to see how much is too much or too little. All right, so let's go another pro.
How about homework giving students a chance to practice? I know this is one that I still, when I put on my traditional teacher hat and I show the students something while they're in class and then they go home, what do I expect them to do? Practice it. I still believe in that model for some things sometimes. So for me, that's a definite pro, just to give them a chance to try what they worked on in class that day, refine those skills, ideally come back with questions the next day.
So they go home, you give them a set of 20 questions. I'm just throwing a number out there. I'm not saying that that's the right amount of questions. And they go home and they can't figure out the first one.
Right.
They're lost on the first one. So therefore, they're going to be lost on the remaining 19. Perhaps. Maybe they get a couple.
Yep.
All right. So Sally goes home. She's lost on the first one. She has all these questions. Are you going to, like, what is the proper etiquette here? I mean, maybe her parents are very knowledgeable in a subject and can teach her, and she gets through the 20 questions. But then on the other side, you have a set of parents that maybe hasn't taken chemistry since the 10th grade.
Oh, for sure.
So are we is the playing field not equal for all students then? Is that causing, an imbalance between students? Is it fair?
It's definitely worth considering. I mean, like you said, if the student is home and doing the homework at home to practice or refine those skills, especially at the high school level, even a lot of times these days, I know math is taught very differently than it was 20, 30, even 10, 15, 20 years ago. Parents can't always help with what their kids are doing. So if they take that worksheet home and they can't do number one, then, the next 19 problems, not super helpful. So there is a place there for homework really not achieving that. So definitely a potential pro, but there's a con side to that one as well.
And a lot of people throw the counter argument that, there's YouTube out there that will teach you how to do it and everything. But once again, there are families that have the internet and families that have computers at home.
Yep.
And then there's families that don't have that privilege.
Absolutely.
And so I kind of see where this could be problematic, the homework.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely creates some issues. Here's another one that kind of comes up in certain communities more than others. What about parents demanding homework or equating the amount of homework their students get with the rigor of that school or the quality of that education? I know just as much as some parents think there's way too much, we're starting to see other parents feel like there's maybe not enough, and that implies somehow that the teacher's not doing enough to teach those students.
That's super interesting. I mean, I feel like no matter how you look at it, you could see positive. I mean, we've been doing it this whole time. We've seen positives from points of view and negatives from points of view. But really, I mean, what I would like to do is I would like to really take a look at how homework was given, 40, 50 years ago.
Right.
You take a look at that when, especially a lot of land around here was more farmland, right? Students didn't have time to go home, get homework done, and then go out and perform chores on the farm. If you go back far enough, some students never went to school. They just stayed on the farm and they worked.
Right.
So I think our priorities are shifting. The way that we live is shifting. And not for nothing, technology allows students to get information 3 times faster. So really, are we teaching more content now that we can get it done quicker with technology?
I'm going to throw this out at you. Just as you were talking, it kind of made me think of something. Is it possible to go zero homework? Get rid of all the homework. They learn when they're in school. Students go home and they're free to go to practice, go to art class, do whatever kind of music lessons they have to, and enjoy themselves. Play outside, mess around on the computer, play a little controlled video game time. Zero school homework. Is it possible?
For me, I would say that you could do it. You could give less homework than what you used to give.
Right.
But what I would try to do is try to get students to have outside of school experiences that they could use in the classroom. So it's not quantified by what you know. It's kind of quantified and valuable through your experiences. For example, as a science teacher, you have a lesson coming up on plants. Just have them go out and go for a walk and, pick the leaves of 3 different trees out there, 3 different ones, and bring them in. For the most part, everyone has access to trees.
Sure.
Or some type of vegetation, some type of plant. So I feel like that's something that they could do. It will get them outside. It will have them doing something. It's not super stressful, but it's something valuable to the classroom.
Right.
And that's a very, simplified example.
Well, I think probably, at least for me, what I would advocate for, if we're really getting into it and talking about pros and cons and do we need homework at all, I think we do, but sort of like you said, I think sort of just maybe change it, modify it so it's not 40 math problems in a row, super repetitive, doing the same thing over and over again, where if they are confused on one, they can't do any of the others, and then all the stress and anxiety that comes with that, shorten it, make it valuable. Maybe, and we've talked about the flipped classroom.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The flipped classroom allows you to give them content just to be exposed to it. You'll probably go over and highlight some key points, but if you just give them the content to be exposed to it and not make it due overnight, make it due like 3 days later, like assign it 3 days before you're going to do it. That way students have time to go and watch videos or get these resources at a public library if they don't have the internet or computer at home. Or they could do it during their free time, maybe a study hall or as they're waiting for the bus, something like that, to get these kids on an equal playing field.
Right. So what was your neighbor's name? Tony?
Tony.
Tony. I think what we're saying here, at least at GotTechED, is to all the teachers out there also, maybe just rethink what your homework is and ask yourself, is it valuable and does it have to be done at home? And is there maybe a way to flip that around and change it so that the student isn't super stressed or is gaining new experiences outside of school that they can then bring to the classroom?
Yeah, and I think equality and fairness is also something that we need to throw in there. If your homework is unevening the playing field, you might want to rethink if that's what we really want. Because if some students are getting it very easy and other students are struggling, and because Johnny says that his parents helped him, Kathy's parents couldn't provide that help, that could be demotivating in the whole grand scheme of learning. So it's just a topic to kind of weigh the pros and cons, and it's a discussion that you might want to have with some of your colleagues. Back in the 3rd grade, I remember that my teacher signed the whole class up to have a pen pal. Do you remember back in those days?
Yes, it was awesome. I had a pen pal in Hawaii, which I thought was the craziest thing ever.
Mine was in Japan and involved a translator, so I would get the original note that was in Japanese, and then I would also get the translated note, which was super cool.
That is cool.
And I just remember being so excited when we got letters, and they would send them to the school. So there's no home addresses here. They would send them to the school, and every Friday the teacher would be like, oh, and I got these pen pal letters, and everyone would sit up in their chairs and be super excited. And for me, I just remember one letter in particular where we kind of took turns exchanging currency. Like I put a $1 bill, a quarter, a nickel, a dime, and a penny, and I sent it to Japan, and he sent me his currency back, and I thought that was super cool. I still have the currency to this day. I mean,
wow.
I have not been to Japan, and even if I would go to Japan, I don't know if I would take that with me because it's kind of sentimental.
Yeah, it might be out of date at this point too. I mean, we're talking. This is a while back. I'm assuming. I mean, when I had mine, I was in elementary school. So not to date us, but we're going back 25, maybe almost 30 years here. This is pre-internet days. At least for me, our classrooms didn't have computers till I was in about 5th or 6th grade.
We had the Apple computers that were shaped like an apple.
Yeah, but that was later, right? We might have had some
with
of those.
DOS, I think, programming on it.
MS-DOS.
MS-DOS.
But to get that letter from so far away, I mean, obviously you could call on the phone, but that's a little more of a high-stress scenario, and you're little kids. What are you going to say? But it was the coolest thing ever. And now, obviously, with our, all the, increased communication online and texting, you can do this type of thing in a much easier and potentially much more valuable and elaborate way. The possibilities are endless. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about what we are calling
21st century pen pals.
That's Guise's official term, which I thought was a real term for a real thing, but I guess we just made it up here on the spot, which is surprisingly fitting. And maybe just discuss some ways that a teacher could arrange a 21st century pen pal for their classes.
Well, there are several different ways, and we could talk about Skype and just having a phone call back and forth, but I was thinking more or less you send a video, it's not a live interaction. And one of the ways I thought about integrating it was maybe with Flipgrid. So maybe you have it set up through Flipgrid where the students record a message for their student, and then it is a part of a shared classroom grid, and the teachers can release it to their students.
Yeah, the video aspect is really cool. It's sort of like getting that letter, but instead of just reading what that person wrote to you, a week later after it's gone through the mail, with Flipgrid, then you can actually look at, the video of them talking, and there's no pressure or stress to respond right away in a certain way because, it's not a real-time conversation. Although you could do that. You mentioned Skype, where you could actually set up like a Skype meeting and actually have the direct interaction, but that would have to be a little more controlled. And I guess if it's little kids, you might want to give them some things to talk about, I would imagine.
Some prompts, how old you are, what's your favorite color, that type of thing. And as you get older, maybe it can turn more into a, conversational piece where you're debating something with another class. It doesn't need to be a super long distance away either. You could take a neighboring school district, maybe one of your friends teach there, link up with them and, just have it between two classrooms. You can make it a one-on-one thing. You could do a whole class, like kind of a bigger group connection.
Yeah, I know in a lot of schools, I think our school has one. They call them sister schools, which really just means, I guess, a school somewhere super far away that you have a connection to and you help each other out when one of the schools might be in need, or just communicate back and forth, collaborate. So if you have something like that, you could very easily set up some sort of it'd be really great if it was part of a class project. Maybe 2 math classes talk to each other to work, and the student groups are comprised, a couple students from this school, a couple students from the sister school, and they have to talk to each other about something to solve a problem.
It would have to be a larger project too, where they communicate maybe through a video or something like that, and then they collaborate through G Suite, docs, slides, whatever, and they have to set up a bigger project. I think it would be kind of neat to try. I mean, it would be difficult with the whole grading aspect of it and who's accountable for what, but I think that students would appreciate that type of creativity. I know that we use Skype and Hangouts when teachers are interested in getting an outside speaker, like an author or someone in the military, to talk to their groups of students. We do that a lot. I mean, we did it over a dozen times last year.
Right.
And usually that's done in the media center where I have, a wide angle lens, and I have a rotating camera and a fisheye camera lens, and we have some speakers, and we set up like a little conference room in one of the side rooms. So I know that's doable, but I think what we're talking here is more personalized, more, smaller group things.
Right. I think something that deserves to be mentioned, and I don't know a whole lot about this, so maybe you can jump in a little bit, but if you're trying to incorporate some kind of communication between schools, like your story with your pen pal from Japan, there's a language barrier. I know you got the translated letter. Technology makes the translating super easy, and you can do it at the drop of a hat these days. I know, isn't it called Google Translate that will do something like that?
Yeah, there's several translation extensions and add-ons and things that you can add to on the Google platform at least.
Yeah, it just makes, so you don't even have to necessarily speak the same language because the computer kind of supports you. You also mentioned interacting with a professional. I know we were listening to somebody recently talk about how they were Skype chatting or doing a Google Hangout with an astronaut up in the International Space Station. And as a classroom, you might actually be able to arrange where, on a spin of the pen pal is talking to that person. Maybe the students could suggest experiments for the astronaut to do in the zero gravity environment, see what happens. I mean, within reason, of course, but that's another another way that maybe you could arrange a cool 21st century.
I definitely think that this is something that's going to be in the near future. And if there's a program developer out there to make this an easier platform to bring it, and I'm not saying that Skype Hangouts and Flipgrid and really just recording a video on your phone can do the trick. I'm not saying that's not the way to go. I'm just saying that this could be done more easily if there's a program out there where someone sets up a meeting, you toss a link there, and there's like teacher tools next to it. I think we just made something. It could be out there, and you know what? If you guys know of something similar to this that makes it more educational than a regular Skype conference or just a hangout, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to experiment with it.
Yeah, share the idea. That'd be pretty cool.
It's time for the Tech Battle Royale! That's right, it's time for the Tech Battle Royale. This is where Nick and I go mano a mano, fisticuffs to fisticuffs. I think that's the right term.
That's a good one.
But we're going at it. Noggin to noggin, beard to beard. You have a nice beard this week. It's not coming in patchy. I think you're maturing.
Well, it's freshly trimmed, so I appreciate the compliment. Some of the categories we'll get into are productivity, video screencasting, Google add-ons, extensions, fun and games, and so many more. Guys, do you want to spin the wheel and get it started?
All right, let's do it.
So this is always a dangerous one because this is my partner's specialty here. What we have landed on today is Chrome extensions. I don't even know if is it Chrome or is it Google extensions? What's the proper term? I guess they're both kind of the same thing.
Chrome is the search engine.
Yeah,
Google is
right.
Kind of like the little brother of the search engine.
Sure. Either way, we're talking extensions, and I know, there's tons of stuff out there to choose from. I've got an interesting one. Not sure how it's going to play out. I don't know what Guise has lined up for this necessarily. Do you want to kick it off?
I know it's the beginning of the school year, and I know that as the school year gets crazy, mine is going to help that teacher get a little less crazy, more organized.
All right, what do you got?
I guess I'm going first then.
You might as well.
All right, my extension is called Extensity. If you can't tell by the name, it relates to extensions. And every time I hear of a new extension, I want to try it out. And I want to pass it on to the right people like yourselves listening, or to my teachers and my colleagues. All right, so yes, it is called Extensity, and basically the gist behind Extensity is you download this extension to manage your extensions. Now, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I could tell you I have 145 now extensions downloaded, and they do take up a little bit of space, and they will slow down your computer a little bit if they're all up and running. And I have some extensions that I really like, but I don't want to have them on all the time. For example, I use this one extension that allows you to hover over a image, and it slipped in my mind. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
At the time, it'll probably come to me, but if you hover over an image on a Google image search, it pops out that image, so you could see it a little bit bigger than what it is. That way you don't need to click on it and then go backwards and stuff.
Oh, cool.
But that image tool or extension, I don't want to have that up there the whole time, because personally I find that pop-out feature annoying unless I'm working on that type of a project, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So Extensity allows you to turn on and off your extensions. So that is mine.
Okay.
Like I said, it is called Extensity. You need to go check that out. And Nick, what do you got?
Well, I just want to first point out that you're suggesting I get another extension to manage all my other extensions. I would just go in and look at all my extensions and delete all the stupid ones that I don't use all the time anyways. Sounds like you're just adding to the pile.
Yeah, but if this way, for example, and I just remembered the extension Imagus, IMAGUS.
Okay.
I don't want to have that on at all times. But if I delete it and I need it later on when I'm working with a project where I want to bring in pictures from the Google world into my project, I don't want to have to go to the Chrome store every time and go do it. I just click on the Extensity icon. I go down to Images, and I turn it back on.
So I guess as long as it's easy to turn them on, you just get like a list when you click the little icon of what you have, and you can turn them off and on.
Yeah, and you can see all of your extensions there, whether they're on or off, because the ones that are off are grayed out, and the ones that are active are bold. So if you want to turn it on, you just click on it and hit re-enable, and you're good to go.
All right. Well, hold on to your socks for this one, because it might knock them off.
Okay, I'm ready.
You holding them?
I'm holding them.
Sound Gecko.
Oh.
It's called Sound Gecko. It's a pretty cool Chrome extension. I think the beauty of this is in its simplicity.
I know what it is.
You always
This is where you hit the little gecko symbol up in the top and you can save on car insurance.
that's one.
Or is this the one where you click on the gecko and you could hear like geckos in nature?
Well, actually, if I just found this out a little bit ago, when you just Google, like without any other clarifiers, if you just Google Sound Gecko, it just takes you to a bunch of YouTube videos that show you the actual sound that real geckos make. I don't even know they made a sound, but I thought it was pretty cool.
All right, so I'm guessing it has nothing to do with the sound of the gecko.
It has nothing to do with that. I actually don't know the origin of the name, but Sound Gecko is obviously another Chrome extension. So when you add it to your Chrome browser and you click the little button, it allows you to, if you highlight text, so this can be just a little snippet of text, or I think for me, the application would be larger chunks of text if I'm really busy doing something else. You highlight it, and Sound Gecko will read that text back to you without you actually having to read it yourself. So it just vocalizes everything you've highlighted. I know for me, being involved with multiple projects at one time, especially if I'm doing something for my own school, a class that I'm in, and also working on something at home, maybe while I'm making dinner or cleaning up, the ability to highlight something and have it read to me so I don't actually have to sit there and only do that one thing. It's a great way to multitask. It's just super valuable. So it's simple, but it's extremely effective, and I would recommend Sound Gecko to anybody.
So does it work on your emails?
Sure does.
And so any article that you want. So basically anything on your Chrome platform that's up, you can highlight it and it reads to you.
As long as it's in the Chrome browser. So yeah, emails would count for that. Social media, like I said, any kind of article, as long as you can highlight the text. So certain like PDFs where you can't actually highlight anything, it depends on the type of PDF, those won't work. But yeah, it'll read that back to you.
I wonder if it like does different accents. Because if
so.
they need a Brooklyn accent, I know a guy.
We just get Tony down here and we'll set up the Tony accent for Sound Gecko. I don't think that's a feature yet, although that would make it a stronger contender here. I don't know. Our extensions are pretty different.
They are pretty different, and it's hard to pick a winner here. I mean, obviously, I'm going to go with mine, but I'm open for debate on this one. You got Sound Gecko. Awesome tool. This would be great for kids with IEPs for reading comprehension. Maybe this would help them out.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways you could use it, not only for yourself, but in your class. I'm going to, again, argue this simplicity angle. I like when something only does one thing, one simple thing, but it does it really good. And
I think I just made your case again by saying it's also beneficial for students. I guess I can make an argument that students could use Extensity as well, but I think that whole, IEP for that type of student, maybe in special ed, that might give you the advantage, and I dislike myself for this, but I'm going to declare another loss.
I can't believe you're saying it, but I really think, like I said, the simplicity of Sound Gecko does it. Although I'll say, if you're interested in productivity and kind of, if you're a person, and I'm not, which is why I wouldn't have chosen what you chose, but if you are a person who has a ton of extensions, I guess you might want a new one.
Yeah, I think I just used this one for the wrong category. I should have waited for teacher productivity, and I think I would have had the upper hand. But Nick, we'll let you go with the victory speech for the week. Go out, check out Sound Gecko and Extensity, and make sure you stay organized for the new school year.
And here comes my victory speech. Aaron Lorton, author and road trip connoisseur, writes, "There is a strange comfort in knowing that no matter what happens today, the sun will rise again tomorrow. I think this sentiment is especially important for teachers to remember during these early weeks of the school year. So whether you're a new teacher trying to keep your head above water or an experienced one wrestling with the newest changes, the sun will rise again tomorrow and you'll get a new chance to do your best. So with each rising sun, consider some of our tips from this episode. Buy coffee for your main office secretaries, get a birthday gift for your classroom custodian, revise your upcoming homework assignment, organize some 21st century pen pals for your class, and try Extensity or Sound Gecko. Or don't, because tomorrow is another day." Thanks for listening to GotTech the Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at WeGotTech or follow along on our website, GotTechED.com. Until next time.